Hey everyone, and welcome to Framework Fridays. Today I am going to take you through an absolute must-have with any new venture, opportunity, or project. It's a stakeholder map. Stakeholders can be absolute corporate killers for anything innovative. So it's very important that you identify your key stakeholders and prioritize how you're going to work with those stakeholders throughout your initiative to make sure that you are set up for success. So the framework is very simple. It's a quadrant that essentially groups all of your stakeholders into one of four quadrants based on their level of interest and influence on the initiative that you are pursuing. So the first thing that I'd like to do, there's kind of four key steps for this one. The first step is to essentially, for your initiative, is to list out all your stakeholders that you might possibly have that could touch, influence, be interested in this particular initiative. So in this case, I've listed a bunch here for, let's call it initiative A. And then the second step we do is we plot these on the framework itself, which is based on their level of interest and their influence. And the key thing here is to really just, you're force ranking these stakeholders relative to each other. It doesn't necessarily matter where they go in the quadrants. It's the quadrant that they land in that matters and is going to help how you define and how you treat those particular stakeholders. So let's go through, race through this example at the moment. So the first one is the CEO. For initiative A, let's say the CEO might have a reasonably high level of influence, but is very focused on a lot of stuff and future growth strategy. Let's go, your project sponsor is going to have a high level of interest and a high level of influence. Chief Marketing Officer, in this case, let's say you're going to be very dependent on the marketing team to execute if you move to the execution phase of this particular initiative. So let's say they're a high level of interest and influence because you're going to be very dependent on them and their people to influence that direction. So it's critical that they come on the journey with you and influence your strategy and kind of shaping the proposition from here. CTO, let's go the same thing. You're going to need your technology teams to help execute. Let's say you have to build something or you're going to rely on a team to build something. Head of design, let's say it's the same deal. Let's say in your core team, you've got a designer, a service designer, product designer, visual designer, whatever it might be. So you're going to need someone, their boss who's going to be very interested in what they are doing and potentially bring some expertise into the actual process as well. Strategy director, let's say they've got a high level of influence, but in this case, they're not particularly interested. They've helped identify the opportunity, but they very much, this is an executional phase, so they might move on to other pastures. Let's say the head of business line Y, which is a completely different business line to you. They're not interested at all. They don't even care what you're doing, but also they have a very limited level of influence over what you're working on. So let's put them in the bottom quadrant here. Same with head of business line X. They're not interested at all, nor are they influential. Let's say the former PM, so someone has worked on this initiative before and it might have failed, it might have pivoted, it might have just been defunded or paused, whatever it might be. So they've probably got some skin in the game. They're passionate. They've got a lot of knowledge to unlock. So we're going to say they're highly interested, but they may not be in this part of the business anymore. They might have moved on. So they're not necessarily influential, but a very important person with a high level of interest in the success or not success of this proposition. Let's say the contact center manager who's focused on bringing down the FTE costs to serve or call wait times or whatever it might be, not necessarily focused on what you're trying to do, but your proposition may influence call times. It may influence the amount of people who call in. There might be a call to action to contact. There might be a chat required, whatever it might be. Let's say they're influential. They just can't give the headspace for this. So we're going to put them in a high level of influence and a low level of interest at this point. Let's say compliance manager and legal manager are the same because you're going to need to consult them. You're going to need their expertise in terms of what's legal, how does it align with our compliance, what are the regulatory bodies, all those kind of things. You're going to need those people. But again, they're very busy people. They've got 1,000 things on their plate, so they will be more on a consultative basis. So you can see here, we've conveniently landed with a few people in each of the quadrants. And then the next key thing is to then just design or decide how you are going to treat each of these quadrants with your engagement strategy. So the way I like to do it is very much the top right quadrant, so high level of interest, high level of influence. is set that group as your key stakeholder group, your advisory board, your steering committee, however you want to shape it. But these are the people that should be influencing the direction of your proposition in a very clear and articulate and meaningful way. You don't want to leave them out of that decision making. That decision making might be based on data, facts that you present, recommendations that you make, but they need to be involved in that decision making because they've got to come on the journey, because they're probably going to fund either the people, the dollars, or whatever it might be that you need to take this thing to the next phase. The next group is your low interest, high influence. So again, I would say if you think about this as a RACI, these are very much a consultative role because you are going to need these people on an ad hoc basis. So you need to keep them updated with semi-regular updates in terms of the progress of the initiative, how things are moving, when we're likely to need you or engage you. So it just gives them that context so it's not a surprise from nowhere. Then in the bottom right quadrant, we've got high interest, low influence. These people are very, very important and they need to be treated again as SMEs. So these are people that have passion. They could be influential in the business, maybe not necessarily influential in your project, but these are the people who can actually really determine the success or failure of your venture. Because if you don't treat them with the respect that they feel they deserve, they can bring this thing potentially crashing down if they are influential across the business. Again, like I said, may not be influential for your initiative, but secondarily through their broader influence, they can potentially bring these things down through politics, through whatever it might be. So very important to engage these people who are very interested. They want to help. They either want to help or they want to see you fail. So you need to make sure you involve them in that in some form, in a really kind of positive and make them feel very special. The last group here is your low interest, low influence. Very much up to you how you want to engage those. That's probably more your headline when you're ready to launch, when you've got something designed, when you've got something ready to move, whatever it might be. That's kind of your, I guess, your rest of staff who may not have a huge interest or influence in your success. So that's the stakeholder map. One pro tip is to keep this as a live document. So this should not be a set and forget. One thing that I like to do is just include this kind of on your Miro board, your whiteboard, whatever workspace you have as a live document. Keep versions of it at points in time because you will have stakeholders come in and out of your initiative at various points in time. And they could be internal, they could be external, they could be partners, whatever it might be. So great to keep it as that and then have a really clear engagement strategy for each of those quadrants. So there you have the stakeholder map. I hope you find it very useful. If you'd like a copy, you can download one on our website. I'll drop the link in the comments below and would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you.